last but not least, I'd like to invite Shrikar, who's going to talk to us about the project management business. And again, this is one where there's a lot of data collected. So we've kind of gone back to this theme of data, and when you look at an organization, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of metadata that's being created, and talk to us a bit about what's happening with AI and generally first, and where do you see some of the successes so far and some of the opportunities?
Hello, everyone. First of all, excuse my thick Indian accent.
All that partying last night? Oh, no,
no,
not yet.
I mean, I'm actually, I have a bit of throat pain here, but anyway. Well, we all know that, AI is trying to disrupt almost all the industry. What we have here, I mean, we just saw a few companies here. But I can speak from the project management standpoint. Well, we've been seeing AI disruption in, again, project planning, execution, resource management, resource allocation. I mean, every team, every industry can actually now make use of AI, in every step, every process. But the majority is, I think what I'm seeing personally is in the whole project management itself. The whole cycle of planning the project, executing it, making sure that everyone works on this particular project. I mean, that's the biggest disruption. So it's moving from static planning towards dynamic planning. Execution is moving towards adaptive execution rather than the stereotype execution, like, okay, this person does this kind of work. Yeah, that's, I think.
So it's a big area of planning. Data is very important. Where are we now? Where do you think we'll be in 2 or 3 years? And not only in terms of the human employees, but where does agents, we talked earlier about in the legal profession, and there's others, obviously the engineering and finance, where especially a lot of the junior level jobs are going to be done by agents. How is that, the organization of 3 years from now, how do I work with 5 different reports, 2 of whom are human, the other 3 are agents? How does that all play out in your head?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a new normal in next 2 to 3 years, where you have hybrid teams. When I say hybrid, again, human plus agent kind of teams. Any roles which were there earlier, probably most of the roles still would require human plus agent assisted kind of roles, but there are a few roles where agents can take over completely. And I think that is the new thing which we're going to see in next 2-3 years, where it's going to be agent plus human teams, where you're accelerating the entire process. Yeah, I mean, that's a new thing which we have to adapt as well.
I'm waiting to see the first organization where you have human employees reporting to an agent. That will be an interesting dynamic.
It might happen sooner.
Well, I'm trying to remember the name. Maybe someone knows it. There was a website that was set up where agents could hire a human for jobs that you needed a physical body, and humans would go. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? And so agents would hire humans, and humans could go and sign up and charge, like, I don't know, $5 to go do something where you required a physical body to go to this location to take this photo. And it was just browsing through. There's real money being made by humans that are effectively being hired by computers to do these jobs. So it's pretty surreal where we're heading. But let's talk a little bit about data. Most people don't realize how much data organizations are collecting. And going back to what we talked about earlier, which is the mode is no longer the technology. The mode is proprietary data that belongs either to the company or to the organization using the company's services. Give us some example of some of that data that today is being created.
As you rightly said, I think technology is more commodity right now. I think data is the gold mine, and we all knew this, right? Data is the gold mine. But proprietary data is what can, make or break any company, right? So there are a lot of data getting generated every day, in these organizations. We see that everywhere, right? Like starting from, again, coming from the resource standpoint, how the delays happens, how things are worked, who can do what, and what is the best way of doing things. So these are the kind of data, metadata every tool which is there today generates, but nobody's actually using it in the right way, right? So probably AI will definitely, disrupt that part, collecting this data and understanding human or organization itself in a better way, where you can actually automate a lot of stuff. Probably we are leading towards the autonomous execution than just planning and executing things like how we've been doing for the last 20 years.
One of the things before investing in Timeline that I started thinking about all the data that's created in an organization, and a lot of it is metadata that we don't realize. So it's how fast did I complete my 360-degree review, or who am I interacting with on Slack, and what time of the day am I doing that? So am I the kind of employee that stays up until 3 in the morning, or do I wake up early? So if I'm completing a task, am I a just-in-time kind of procrastinator, or do I do it early? And those are all these subtle pieces of information that the organizations collect, or they may not even collect them. They're in the platforms they use, but they haven't really been really taken advantage of in the past. And so that's where we saw a big opportunity with Timeline, and I want to segue into that. So talk to us a bit about the company with a focus on kind of all these little pieces of data that the organization across their multiple systems are generating.
So Timeline is kind of playing that execution intelligence role in any organization. See, we work on top of all your existing organizational tools. We have 250 plus integrations. The only thing what we have seen is, yes, all these tools are there. There are different teams, but all these teams work in silos, and there is no. I mean, me and Parth, we have been to a lot of companies. One of the companies just next to us here. I mean, I think we know who works on what floor and how they work, right? So they still spend their time on spreadsheets. There are tools which track things. It's documented, right? The work is documented, but nobody is actually using that data. So what Timeline does is it understands every single bit of the way things been happening in this organization, and from the human standpoint as well. So using Timeline, you can actually plan your projects, execute your projects almost autonomously, and in fact, it adapts as and when things changes in the project itself. For example, almost every organization spends just to do what if scenario, probably around almost 2 to 3 weeks, spending their teams on this, to plan things out. But I think with Timeline, it's much easier. I mean, you should be able to do that within the next 13 minutes. And any projects, if you can imagine, which has been done for almost like 6 months now, with Timeline, you should be able to do it within 45 days. So we just don't work with humans. Of course, we respect humans. We also work with the agents. So Timeline understands which tasks should be allocated to humans and which are the tasks agents can handle independently. So it's your orchestration layer, which coordinates between project, budgets, finance, resources, humans, agents, everything, making sure that there's always success.
So I'm sure you've heard this question before, but elaborate a bit how Timeline is different from a traditional like Asana or a traditional project management platform. And what do you bring to the table? How do you work with those platforms?
Yeah, so we don't compete with project management tools. In fact, we love them. We love Jira, we love Asana, we love all these project management tools. They are good. They're good in tracking. They document the work. But Timeline is like adding brains to your existing processes. We still integrate with your project management tool, and we work on top of it, right? So these tools generate a lot of data, and Timeline actually identifies those unique metadata, as Nikos was mentioning, and we kind of map things out like, okay, this person or this agent can do certain things like this, right? It goes back to the historical data of how things been happening, who is working what, and who is good at something. Like, for example, we both might share the same experience, same skill set, right? But Timeline understands, okay, Shrikar might be the right person to do certain task, but Nikos might be the right person to do different task, right? So we use these tools to collect data.
I'm great at delegating.
Yeah, so we use these tools to collect data. We work on top of it, so we are not competing with project management tools. We integrate with almost all the tools you use in the organization. We in fact have built an AI assistant where you can actually just integrate unknown tool as well to the platform. So yeah.
So we talked a bit about this, and it's, again, one of those areas that we try to tiptoe around, but it's happening. It will continue to happen. People are going to get laid off, and AI is going to, agents or not, are going to replace a lot of those human roles. And traditionally, the process is a CEO calls in the C-suite and say, hey, we got to cut 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever the magic number is to make the stock market happy. Go do your thing. They go to their division heads, transfer the message, and it kind of trickles down. And that's probably not always the most efficient method, depending on what the KPIs of the company are. And that's always kind of been the case. So that's something that even when we first talked about was interesting from the kind of CFO perspective. Now when you have this additional component, which is you're not just cutting people, you're replacing them with agents. So the ability to evaluate the effectiveness of an agent in replacing a human factors into the decision making. So talk to us about what a CFO role would be when the CEO says, we got to cut 40% of our costs. How would that be done better and more effectively for the organization by using Timeline?
Well, we don't promote that.
Yeah, I know, but
He does.
yeah. Only when we talk to CFOs.
But yeah, so using Timeline, yeah, you will definitely understand where or what kind of roles can be actually replaced by agents, and where you actually can identify the performance, who is performing better and who's not. So, I mean, I don't want to get deeper, but I will definitely say that Timeline can come back and say, hey, these are the areas where you can actually cut short people, and you can replace with agents, or these are the areas where there is no performance, or these are the areas where there is a lot of performance. We need this team working for us continually, right? Continuously. So that's what people can use it. So it can come back and give you the exact picture of what could be the budget, expenses, or how much you will actually save if you take this action using Timeline. So it gives you a candid view of the whole organization setup. And
yeah. So I assume you have a demo going on in the back?
Yep.
So I encourage everyone to go and take a look. All of our companies that were up here have a table. There are two things about Timeline that we didn't really touch on. It's probably easier to see. One is that when you plan these projects, it gives you options. It says, if you want to do something the fastest possible way, but it may not be done in the best possible way, use this or this team, and some of that might be agents, some of it might be humans, or if you want to do something that's cheapest, or if you want to do something that's more accurate, let's say, or the best results, and you kind of can pick and choose. The other aspect of it, which I like playing around with, is they do have their own internal chat called VIA, so-called VIA?
Yep.
VIA allows you to ask any questions related to the organization. So again, you're collecting all of this information from 250 sources, all the platforms, whether they're communication platforms, project management softwares, HR platforms, and you can ask questions about your employee base and pose theoretical scenarios. What happens if we take this person and place them in this department? Or I'm looking to launch this new project. I'm thinking about these people being kind of the people managing the team. Who have they worked well with in the past? And what kind of experience have they had? Or you can view an HR angle to this, which is, we're thinking about introducing these benefits across the organization. How are my employees expected to react to that? And you could do that based on seniority or division if you have multiple locations. So it's a very kind of open-ended way to get information about your employee base that most organizations right now have the data and metadata for, but they don't really have access to the information. So with that, we're going to wrap up. I think lunch is next. Thank you, Shrikar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone else.